So give them the technology, teach them how to use the technology, and how to build up from the human brain on top of that technology.
The first time I started with is thanking you for being here this morning. And we've never really sat down and talked ever. And you've been in Japan for how long now?
19 years.
19 years.
2004 I came.
But we know a lot of the same people.
True.
Yes.
Well, not very large community.
It's true. Especially, well, they have several foreigners here. I always like to say there's two types of foreigners. Those surviving and those thriving.
Like that. We are the second.
We're the thriving ones. So if we're
thriving,
then it changes life. It makes life a little bit different in Japan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where were you born?
Born in Bulgaria, in a small village near the Black Sea called Shumen. My father went there as a journalist. He met my mom, and by the way, in that city today, he's very well known. He established a museum of one of the Hungarian heroes.
Is he still with us? Is he still with us?
He passed away, but the city memorized him with a monument. He did a lot for that city, Shumen.
How old did he live till?
He lived there for over 20 years.
But how old was he when he died?
70.
Okay, that's young.
He passed away in 2003, but the city where I was born pay a big respect to him because he created a museum, actually two museums, one later than this one. And then he established a competition about poetry reading of Hungarian poets in Bulgarian language, absolutely unique. Nobody did that ever. One country, boys and girls, competing for a best award, which is a trip to Hungary, of another country, Hungarian poetry. And that competition still goes on. My mom and I donate the prize today, so it's going on for over 50 years.
So your mom's doing well?
Yes, she's fine.
How old is your mom
85.
Now? 85 years old.
She's alive with my sister. I'm going there next week for her birthday.
So it's you and you have a younger sister?
She's older. She's 2 years older than me. She lives with my mom.
So just the two of you?
Yes, we are two, yes.
Were you close growing up?
Yes, in the same school, by the way. We were in the same school, in the same schoolyard. We were very close with my sister. Still we are.
But she lives with your mother now, so
she lives in Sofia.
She didn't get married. Did she get married?
She got married. She got 2 boys. She's retiring later this year. She worked for the biggest electricity company in Bulgaria, the National Energy Corporation, and she's fine. Yes, my sister is fine.
Okay, so as a little kid, what was it like for you growing up? In let's start with elementary school.
Well, it was a small school where we studied with my sister, as I said. It's a very joyful memories. I remember my grandfather taking me there and back, and we enjoyed and like visiting that school now over 60 years. What I found out quite funnily is that the distance from home to school at those days when I was young looked like horribly long. Right. And today is like from here to there. Yes, but
you're a little kid, you're trying to keep up
with
the
little
adults.
Kid with a big bag. And it's so, long to get to the school. And now he's just,
And your grandfather would be taking you?
Yes.
Well, did you live in the same, the families are very close then?
Yes, my grandfather house.
And what about grandmother?
And she lived until 80s. She actually passed away, and the day she passed away, she cooked for us in the morning. She went to the shops, bought the ingredients, cooked the
This is in Bulgaria?
In Bulgaria. And she passed away in the afternoon, but the food was done. It was in the oven, in the kitchen. So we came back, she was lying already dead, but we had dinner cooked by my grandmother on the same, so no hospitals, no doctors. Actually, the doctor couldn't find any document to write into the death certificate what she passed away from. And they simply put a cardiac arrest, the usual, normal causes. And she was very
Did she pass before your grandfather?
After my grandfather. My grandfather passed first, then my grandma. So my father also passed away, but he left that great memories from his work, and that's the
Were you,
connection with
were you close with
Hungary.
your Were you close with your father?
Yes, very close. We were together in the same house all the time until I left for the army at the age of 18. So, but that was after Hungary. Let me go back to Hungary.
Right.
Because of those connections with Hungary, which my father got during those years, when I was a child, he was invited to work in Budapest as a cultural representative of the there was a cultural center, Bulgarian cultural center, and he was the deputy director for 4 years. So we moved there when I was at the age of 14. So between 14 and 18, I live in Budapest in Hungary, and it was marvelous.
Did you speak Hungarian prior to going there?
No. Not a single word. It's a totally different language. I speak Russian from year 1 in school, but Hungarians I learned where I was there.
Do you still speak
in
Hungarian?
Budapest? I can understand. I can say a few words.
Right.
It's quite different from all languages. You know, they don't use hotel and restaurants. They don't use revolution, which in every other country will be the same. They use their own word, like saloda for hotel, Forradalom for revolution. So it's quite a unique country. They prefer their own for everything, and which is kind of a challenge. But those days, actually, my mom studied it most. She still remembers Hungarian quite well. I can understand, I can read, but definitely I would be. I need time to re-practice my Hungarian.
So go on. So you're in Hungary, and you said as you were coming up, growing up in Hungary.
Yes.
What was your environment like? What was it like for you
Well,
as
it was
kid?
a great place. We played tennis. We got a swimming pool. We were very happy there.
In elementary school?
Yes.
What time? Elementary school.
But that was already at the age of 14.
No.
It must be
14.
the secondary school. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
secondary school.
And that was also Russian, English, and French. I studied all those languages.
So were you more academic or were you more physical?
Academic. Yeah, it was an academic school. Yes.
So that's something that you enjoyed more, or were you?
Both. I think I was quite sport. My father was a junior champion in tennis in Bulgaria, although I often joke with him because it was mixed doubles. And the lady he played with was the solo champion. So I would say it's because of her, right?
That's why he's doing so well. She was always his partner, right?
He's getting a bit angry at me. But I say, okay, you're a champion, but don't forget to mention that you play with the solo champion in mixed doubles.
So you started playing tennis at a very early age.
Yes, at those days, yes.
You do. Do you still play tennis now?
Yeah, I do. I played 2 days back.
But you play tennis, you ski now,
Yeah,
you
these
do
are
water
the-
sports.
These two are my favorite. I love those two. I ski, well, during coronavirus, I went back to Bulgaria, and because we were teaching online, I don't need to stay here. So I spent 40 days in a ski resort, virtually delivering a lecture in the morning, you know, time difference with Japan. I will start the day like 7 o'clock with the lecture to my Japanese students.
Soka.
Yes.
Is that who you were giving your lecture to in the morning?
Yes, yes, but from Bulgaria, from my laptop, because it's Corona time. You need to deliver online lectures.
Exactly. So,
But
so
you
you went
sit
back.
in a
You
ski
went,
resort.
you went back to Bulgaria?
Yes, I spent all the time, those 2 years mostly. The university told us to teach online. They didn't require us any presence. Basically, they told us.
So you left just to make sure you
take
could
your
be home.
laptop and deliver your lecture wherever you are.
So you went to stay with your mother?
Yes, I stayed with my mom. She was so happy. You know, she said, "Oh, thank you, Corona, for bringing my son back."
To be with you for 2 beautiful
because
years.
2 years I spent 80% of the time with her, which never happened for the last 32 years. I was always in London, in Tokyo, in India, in New York. So it was the time I spent with my mom was kind of paradoxically, she thanks Corona.
Of course,
the biggest disease and challenge
for some people,
was something she actually, that's what brought me back to her house, and we spent
That is beautiful. And I bet you had a good time.
Very good time, yes. Although, yes, it finished. So now she's again joking and saying, when will be the next Corona? I say,
So
thanks
she can
God,
get her
no.
boy back. So she can get her boy back. That is beautiful.
She's very positive, very, in a good way, thinking positive.
It sounds like your whole family is very close. If your grandmother cooked the day
she died, she went to
making
the shops.
Making
not
sure
only
the families.
she walked to the shops, and it's 5 floors back and up. We live on an apartment which was without elevator, one of those old.
That's what kept her. How old is she? How old was she?
85. At the age of 85, she walked down 5 floors. She did the shopping, and it's heavy shopping, you know. She has to buy everything.
Everything for the whole family.
Take it back on the stairs 5 floors, cook it, and that's it. And we came home. There was a hot oven, switched off, of course.
Right.
And she passed away, but we had the dinner in a memory of her life.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
That's beautiful.
We all have to do it.
That's a story I remember.
That is so beautiful. Okay, so going through school, okay,
Right.
you're in Hungary, you go through school there until what age?
Between 14 and 18. At the age of 18, I had to go back to the army. At those days, the army was compulsory for all Bulgarians. But also my father's appointment ended.
What year are we talking now?
It was 1978.
Okay.
79.
Okay.
1979. Well, my father's terms got to an end. It was a 4 years appointment with the Cultural Center. He moved back to the Ministry of Culture in Bulgaria, and I and my sister, actually, we had another year in a school in Bulgaria before the army. So it must be 1980 when I graduated and went to the army. It was I was a border guard.
A border guard?
Yes, there was a compulsory military
which border?
service. Initially with Greece, where I spent 6 months in a kind of a camp for surgeons, a kind of study, and to become a commander of a unit, you need 6 months training in a camp in that border. But then I moved back to the Serbian border, where was.
But when you came in, you didn't come in as an officer.
No, I came back as a sergeant. Yes, from the school.
A sergeant.
Sergeant. Yes.
Okay, so you were enlisted in the military. In the U.S., we say
at
enlisted.
the time it was compulsory, no escape.
Right.
I was actually at the time very patriotic, and looking back at those articles, I wrote articles in newspapers which were very patriotic, you know, love my country and serving my country. But later over the time I thought actually I become kind of anti-militarist. I could have spent those 2 years elsewhere reading books and educating myself, but I never regretted the army, because the army gave me the best friendships, some of the best friendships in my life. I still am in touch with people.
Don't you feel this too sometimes, that the military, I think, makes you find out who you are?
Yes.
Because through their test and all the things they're doing, and you're alone, you have no one to depend upon.
Yes, and you become kind of stronger psychologically, you know,
I think so.
mentally stronger, because this is a time you need to be on your own.
You become a man. It makes it's what we used to say. Nowadays, kids as a whole, women have their own because of nature, but men don't have any rite of passage. So it's hard for them to find out when they become a man.
Yeah, that's.
But when we were growing up, we knew it. You had to do military, and if you didn't, you could now buy alcohol. You could do other stuff, but you
actually,
had a rite of
I was
passage.
thinking, what are the alternatives? For example, they abolished the army after. My son didn't go. And
neither did mine.
In fact, he received a letter, and my mom got a bit worried about him and said, we were already in London, and he grew up in London. He had a British citizenship by the time they asked him to go back to the army. And I said, don't worry, exactly, because he has a British citizenship.
Right, he can see,
he's not really reliable to serve another
right.
country army, so don't worry about that. So yes, the army time was pleasant. I was in the border, we were driving horses, we were basically monitoring the border, which is not much to do, because 90% of the time there is nothing to do. You just walk around, enjoy the nature, and talk to your friends.
Now in school, you were very academic, you said. You liked academia. What did you like the most? What was
reading
it?
books, discovering, philosophy, mostly the European philosophers, Kant, Schumpeter,
how'd you get into
Nietzsche. Kind of, I was interested in how the German philosophy led to the time of the Nazi.
No, what would get you interested in thinking like that? Was it your father, your mother? Someone starts that, you know what I mean? Was it a good
teachers,
teacher?
actually teachers in the school. They were very
They were good.
profound. They wanted me to read books. And not only, again, I read in English, I read in Russian, I read in German, I didn't know, I read translated books. But also even my fellow classmates. Kind of, I get into a circle of classmates.
Right.
And those boys were really interested in books. In music, we listen all the music of the 70s.
What about playing instruments?
I did, but very short time. I played the guitar, but very short time. But we were listening. We were basically doing our own competition. Who is the best album of those days? Back,
like what? Name some albums. Like who?
Boys, Michael Jackson. Even before Michael, there was before Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5.
The Jackson 5.
The beginning of Michael was Jackson 5.
So pop was really popular with you.
Absolutely.
Pop music.
Pop music was popular in Hungary specifically because Hungary was very open. They have their own Pyramid, Locomotive GT, you know, those Omega, the big rock band of Europe.
That's right,
well, some of them Hungarians. I went to
yes.
those concerts. It was funny time indeed. I remember because some of the shows, actually the movies were prohibited for the age below 18, and I was below 18.
Right.
But my sister will get me a ticket. She will, you know, she will make up looking like
she's an older woman, yes.
She will go buy 2 tickets and take me in. Oh, funny times.
That is beautiful.
Yeah,
okay, so straight out of high school, you went to the military.
Yes, 2 years in
Then
Bulgaria,
after that?
back in Bulgaria, and after that I moved to the university, first in Sofia in Bulgaria for 1 year, studying international relations.
Okay.
And then they announced a competition to go to Moscow because the Soviet School of International Relations, it's a big power, was kind of attractive to us. So they say whoever scores the best results out of the first year in the university, you get the chance to move to Moscow and study the same, international relations. In Moscow State...
All paid for.
All paid for, yes.
Right.
The state paid for. Moscow State Institute of International Affairs, MGIMO, they're kind of very proud of that today. All the diplomats in Russia studied in that university. It's kind of the Harvard of Soviet Union.
Okay.
And I was one of the 5 lucky ones who got the highest score in Bulgaria, so we moved to Moscow. And we had 5 years studying in Moscow. Again, another wonderful memory from those days. It was the time of change, by the way. It was when Brezhnev died, Andropov died, Chernenko died, and Gorbachev came.
Right,
4
Gorbachev came in,
secretary generals in my time in Moscow between 1982 and 1988. So I was there throughout those changes in Moscow. Quite significant to see Gorbachev finally coming, somebody with the progressive mind.
That's right. Now Gorbachev is the one that had, they said, like a map on his head, right?
Yeah, some kind of
birthmark up there, right? These are and he and Reagan.
Yes, they are doing
He,
very
Reagan, and Margaret Thatcher.
Absolutely. These are the leaders in...
They were really...
Still today we think they should be something of that
nature, right?
Nature,
to help lead
they,
people.
they did a lot. Well, the end of the Cold War, the disarmament agreement, they stopped producing those nuclear rockets and all of that. That was... Usually I give this to my students. If you have a good example of leadership,
use the 3 of them, right?
Yeah, you can go back 40 years and see what Gorbachev, Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan did. That's the class, you need to.
But all of them took a lot of flack for that.
Yes, absolutely.
They got a lot of flack for that. But Gorbachev, I think of the 3 of them, Gorbachev had to take the most flack. I think he got hurt the most.
He got hurt mostly by the Russians.
I know, that's what I'm talking about. Margaret Thatcher got hurt most by the British.
Yes. Somehow, but that's probably normal, Lance. You know,
think so.
If you look back in Churchill, again, he was not loved after the Second War. Many dismissed his role, and he lost elections. But I will tell you why I think these are great men and women is that they were not thinking of the next re-election. They are much visionary for the long term. They wanted to leave a long legacy and not a short re-election. They are not thinking what happened 2 years later. They are thinking what will happen 20, 40 years later. And that's very important for leadership, because if we don't have those leaders and everybody thinks how to get re-elected only, Then we got all the catastrophic challenges like climate
That's
change.
right, that's
If you
right.
have a leader who will not say how I can be re-elected, okay, green politics doesn't really bring electorate. So that's why you need to go beyond that. I'm happy to lose the next elections, but I want the world to be safer. I want the planet to be cleaner. I want the future of my children and my grandchildren. So you need that long-term visionary leadership as to tackle the climate change.
Can you see that happening now?
Not much, and I'm worried about.
But do you think it's because of the media we have access to now? Because in those days, remember, we wrote letters.
Right.
Everything
Yes.
took longer. You know, we saw the same movie at the same time.
You're right.
But now, in 1 second,
Quickly.
and we expect it in a second, so there's so much information, but not enough maturity
Absolutely.
of the individual. So how do we? how does
100%
it-
agree.
so
This
what-
is the problem, that we have a speed of change with the media, as you mentioned, with new technology, artificial intelligence, and all of that. But are we mentally ready? Are we mature, as you say, to be on that level of understanding and decision making and action?
There's something with the AI,
Yeah.
Vas, that I found very interesting. A lot of people like to think that all this, the new gadgets are for the younger kids, and I'm saying no. It's actually ours.
True.
We made it. They don't even know what questions to ask. They don't know how to research what. They're looking for the next star. They don't understand the importance
Yes,
of history.
Yeah.
So how can they prompt an AI
Exactly.
to give them? So I'm not worried. People worry about it and say you're cheating.
Absolutely opposite.
You
I,
can't-
I admire the new technology.
Don't you think
know,
so?
I was in a talk
Because we
in-
know how to use
Exactly.
it. That's why.
Yes, exactly. I was in a talk in United Nations. Another part of my life was here in Tokyo in the UNU, United Nations University. I spent 11 years there. And in a recent conversation there, we talked exactly about that. Somebody said, how can I prevent my students from plagiarizing using the technology? And I said, no, do exactly the opposite. Give them the chat box, GPT, ask them to generate a text, and then to give their comments, to build up on a generated text. So that's the approach you take here.
That's right.
You don't deny, you don't prohibit, because that becomes worse. If you prohibit a child something, he will do double.
They sure
The other
will.
double. So give them the technology, teach them how to use the technology, and how to build up from the human brain on top of that technology. So the
That's so
approach should, people worry about their jobs. They say, well, I might lose my job because of the computers. No, it's the other way around. You create a computer to take the boring part of your job so that you have free time to develop the next computer to take the better part of your job. So you give part of your job to computers as you go. I'm happy if a robot come and teach my classes and give me the time
Right.
to write another book, and then to create another robot to write the books so that I do something more interesting.
That's right.
So the approach to technology should be exactly that.
That's
Not
right.
worry.
Don't worry.
Use it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the first person I've heard to explain it that way, because that's my feeling 100%. Because I've been using it, and I've watched how my sons used it, and they said, "Dad, look what it can do." And I said, "That's fine. What it can do? Do you know how to use that, though?" It's like
Exactly.
you can give anyone a super fast car.
Exactly.
If they don't know how to drive, what can they
Doesn't
do
matter.
with it?
Absolutely doesn't matter.
What are they going to do with it?
Absolutely.
So plagiarizing, how can you plagiarize if you can't understand what is written? So you can.
No, my colleagues in soccer worried. They decided to think of a way to
Just inhibit
challenge
it.
that, and I said, don't worry, let them plagiarize, but show the computer-generated text and compare to their own. And you cannot plagiarize twice.
That's right.
Once you plagiarize once, then you need something
That's right, that's
from
right.
your to add to that. You know?
See, and we can get into a bigger discussion about this,
Yes.
because plagiarizing, first of all, how do we learn unless we plagiarize?
Exactly. We start by reading and memorizing, right?
None of this belongs to us. It's
Exactly.
coming through us.
Exactly.
Not from us, through us. And we might combine it differently. That's like music, too.
True.
You hear it, and after you hear it, you develop your own tone.
True.
It's still not yours, because someone's done the same thing.
Exactly.
Over and
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Every musician will follow the rules, will plagiarize,
You have
will
to.
learn, will listen, will practice until he or she creates his own music, right?
That's right.
So it's exactly with the science. We don't worry about plagiarism. We want students to read and to reproduce what they read, what they think. And it's easy to spot, because in a face-to-face conversation with a student, You cannot
That's
hear
right.
the moment.
It's
Where whatever you have written on the paper, face to face to the professor, you cannot really escape from saying your exactly opinion. Or your
See, but you know what I think it does also too, Vas? You mentioned that. You said face to face. There are many professors that are teachers for some that really shouldn't be teaching because they don't know their students.
It's good
face
to face.
And then they get upset because if they're reading it, they don't want to take the time to get to know those people.
Right.
They want to get their paycheck, get this exams done, and that's the sad part.
Yes.
That's the sad part.
Yes.
Everyone should not be parents. Everyone should not be teachers.
Yes, it's a profession, like other professions. It takes a bit of a personal, individual bond and relationship with the kids.
But you grew up, that's why we're going back to your background. You grew up in a relationship where everybody was bound together. You had the trust. You had the love.
True.
You wanted each person to survive and grow.
True. That cooperation among people, among friends, among families is crucial for the humanity to survive, I would say. We need to understand each other, to feel each other, to know everyone. And it's a small circle, but useful one to create the values and the vision we are talking about. Exactly. A good family, good school, teachers, friends. Circles.
You have two children of your own. You have
one is in well, they are both in England. One is in London, Ilya. He used to work for the British Prime Minister's office.
So your first child's a boy?
Yes, he is Ilya, the boy.
Right.
And yeah, he educated in England from the age of 2 to age of 18. He went to King's College for the first degree, UCL for the second degree, and ended up with several short jobs, including in Tokyo one. That's how he got married.
His wife is Japanese.
Yes, Japanese wife. And the funny story is he used to work for the British Prime Minister. At the time it was Theresa May. And he's a media person like you. He's a media and communication team to improve her image. Okay. And somehow I remember him complaining that it doesn't work with her. She's a smart decision maker, but on camera she doesn't look good, and they're trying to improve that and things like that. And I said, don't worry. Prime ministers change, you stay and you do the work, and there will be a new one. And then came Boris Johnson, and he got kind of disappointed from a different angle, because Boris Johnson is very media person. He used to be a journalist, but he doesn't listen any advice, so that's another thing. And the same as, don't worry, Leah, it will for some time. There will be a new one.
He was their cameraman?
Yes. Well, not only. He also writes the
script?
briefs, the Twitter, and yes, he's a good writer.
Wait, but he's writing for the prime ministers?
Not the speeches, not the speech writer for the prime minister, which is another team.
Right.
But he's doing the press releases.
Okay.
So he invites the media and he presents the work of the prime minister to the media.
He does it himself?
Yeah. Well, the team he is with.
The team. But so what's his main job? Will he coordinate all of it?
It's called
so is he a cameraman?
Digital communication team.
Okay.
Digital communication team, which includes Twitter.
Everything.
They improve everything the prime minister does need to be improved for the world.
Right.
And they do the camera work, but also the text, the briefs, the releases. What goes out to the public, to the media, they double check it. And
the audio and the video.
It's called digital communication.
Okay.
And then yes, the funny story continues, because he was not happy with Boris Johnson, and Daddy again said, don't worry, there will be a new one. But then the new one was Liz Truss, and that's why he said, Daddy, I'm done. I moved to the Foreign Office. I want something else. They changed, but not for the better.
So what's
now
he doing?
He's with the Foreign Office.
He's with the Foreign Office.
He's still in what they call civil service.
Okay.
So he rotates jobs. He's happy there. It's much more interesting to be with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So he enjoys doing the same work. Did
he make you a grandpa yet?
Yes, he came to Tokyo. We spent nice time with. I have 2 granddaughters from my son now. They're 3 and 1. Sofia and Juno. So a lovely family. You know, the way they married is funny too. If you want to know
tell me the story.
So
no, I know the one story.
And I had a party at home with about 25 people, but After several drinks, I saw a boy and a girl who kind of were very shy in the two corners of the living hall. And I decided, almost like a joke, to introduce them. Went first to the boy and said, "Oh, lovely girl there. Shall I tell you more about her?" Although I didn't know anything about her. I said, "She's from great family, very well educated, future star." And
You're making this up?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I went to her and said, "Exactly, this boy there, he's absolutely great. He's a banker, which I knew. He's very well educated, great family." So I matched them, make them a big cocktail, make them sit on my best sofa, and forgot about the story. Absolutely, yeah, I was drunk myself. And 2 years later, they found me, they called me, and they say, "Please come to our wedding. You met us in that party." Oh, yeah.
Did you remember it? You didn't
No,
even remember.
I didn't.
You
I
don't
said, there
remember
were so
what
many
happened.
parties, I
That's
met
right.
so many people, but yes, if you say so,
Okay,
definitely
right.
I will come. I will make the speech for your wedding, obviously. Shall I say the truth, that I got drunk? No. Please, be serious.
Make it seem like
No
you're really
problem.
person. Okay.
I'll make it serious for your
Right.
parents. I make speeches all my life. I'm a professor. So, and we go to that wedding with my son, and the sister of the groom.
But how old was your son then?
So he was, now he's 32, and that
Okay,
was
so he's in
probably
his
7,
20s.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
So we go to that wedding, and the sister of the groom got attracted. She came to our table all the time, she spoke to him, and I found there is some connection. So I made another party. I invite her with her friend, the two girls. They come, and I remember how they basically put Ilya into the corner, don't allow him to speak to any other girls in the party, bring the food and drinks there, purposefully. And that was it. That's how they start dating, and now they are married. We have two granddaughters.
granddaughters,
And a
that's
lovely
beautiful.
story. Yeah.
Now you also have a daughter, don't you?
And she, Dimana, yes, she's younger. She's now 31. So my son is 33, my daughter is 31.
Now these are all, I'm just being
Interesting
curious.
with my daughter is that at the age of 26, she worked in 6 countries. She worked in London, she worked in Ecuador, she went to Harvard for a job, she moved to Vietnam and to Australia on those 6 months holiday visas. So that's what, well, I usually say I'm a global citizen because I live in 6 countries. But I'm 60, my daughter is 30, you know, and
That's right, they have the,
at the age of 26, she already
They did all that.
went through those.
Do they both have
jobs.
the same mother?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We are, but we divorced. But yes, that's fine. They are in good contact with their mom. No, it was a friendly divorce.
Right. So you still get together when sometimes all of you get together.
Yes,
Sometimes.
most of the time.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Life is changing, you know.
It is, it is.
Dynamic. For example, you mentioned marriage, and that's another funny thing. That when we decided to divorce, we had to find that signature on a document that we, you know, we are marriage certificate.
Right,
but nobody cared about that.
They don't.
She couldn't find it. We asked my mom. She asked her mom. And somehow I started realizing if the marriage is about that signature,
That's right.
it matters only for the divorce. Never ever we had to find that signed
A
document.
piece of document.
But
no
if
one
we-
ever asked for it
But
either.
if we divorce, then we need to go back to the marriage. So
That's
kind of
right.
marriage is about that divorce
Isn't it?
when you need that
Yes.
signature. You can live with the partner for the rest of your life without that signature,
That's right.
love each other,
That's right.
and not need that bloody document.
It's just the government
Yes.
starts to. But I don't know that. You know something? I don't even know that they really make you prove that you're married to the person. I don't know.
For the divorce, you need to
No,
prove,
but I mean,
otherwise,
for
no.
tax reasons, or if you're living with someone, you can say,
Well,
"This
they
is
have
my
those
wife."
civil partnerships, you know, now
I know
with
they do.
the
They do.
development of the same-sex
That's right,
marriages.
right.
There are a lot of development. By the way, that's also the story of my daughter lives with a female partner.
Okay.
They're absolutely straight. They're not lesbian. But they
Wait.
decided to live together as a partner.
Oh, I understand. Oh, that is
My
beautiful.
daughter,
But that's
somehow she got several boyfriends, not happy, and her partner, several
Same thing.
boyfriends, and they decided to get rid of the boys to get together.
But they're both straight.
They are
though.
both straight girls, and each of them want to have one child on her own. So my daughter is Bulgarian, 100%, and her partner is British, 100%. And now her partner got a baby from a donor who is Bulgarian. She doesn't know who
No,
is
who
this,
he
but
is.
it's like half Bulgarian, half British
Okay.
boy, my grandson.
Right.
And my daughter will do the same with a British donor to be half Bulgarian, half British.
Now, how did you handle that? Wait. Well, now, I know you live in this society, but still you grew up at a time that was very traditional.
Yes.
So I know you had to do some searching. Did you want to blame your wife right away?
Never, you know.
But
That's the funny thing, Lance.
saying?
I'll tell you the funny things
Okay.
here. Many people think that what is traditional marriage is the best. No, half of the traditional marriages, my own, including divorce, right? And you know, the biggest argument against the same-sex couples adopting children is that the children will not be happy with two mothers or two fathers. Wrong. There is a research in Cambridge showing the opposite. If you need to overcome all the stigmas in the society to get a child as a same-sex couple, you will love that child. So all the data shows to the opposite. Children from same-sex marriages are much happier than half of the children in a family of scandals, divorces, domestic violence, and all of that. So there is, you know, we sometimes live with the illusions of the traditions, which we need to reconsider.
They're not necessarily
And
true.
look at my daughter. She say, okay, I know the Bulgarian constitution say man and woman as a family unit, you know. But that was written 40 years ago.
That's right.
And she
For
said,
different reasons.
the Bible say man and woman. That was written 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So how a book written 2,000 years ago will tell
Apply
me
today.
to be happy? They have their reasons, you know. And I'm very prominent advocate for, again, choices, diversity, absolutely no limitations. Whatever people enjoy doing, they should be allowed to do it. They don't damage anybody, you know. I look at Caspian, my grandson, and I love him as it's not my blood, you know. It's my daughter, partner, baby, but it's my grandson. I have absolutely no difference to look at my granddaughters, which are kind of my blood, and my grandson, who is not my blood. The others, they play together. I hug three of them all the time, you know. There is no difference.
That is so beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going. There's something I remember growing up. Like I said, I think people should be taught how to parent. They should be taught how to be really good teachers. Those things which we don't do, and they're the most important things we'll ever do our whole life. For example, you know how in America, anyway, I know that when people are growing up, for kids, because I was thinking about how I raised my sons, they usually have a bedroom for the kids. They separate them immediately from the parents. But I remember I was watching this documentary on these emotionally mature tribal people, and the reason why they were so emotionally mature is because they were never separated. They allowed their children to sleep beside them until they became adults. That's what I did with my sons.
Correct. You're right.
I never,
Absolutely.
I never ever put them in their. They had a room.
Yes.
I had their room.
You have a choice to
and
be private or to be social.
And they chose to
socialize.
leave eventually.
Yeah.
And I only kicked one out. That was Lonnie. he was about 7 years old. And he didn't cut his toenail and it scratched me. And I said, okay, you got to go. Time for you to leave.
Exactly.
But
you have a
they've
choice.
always known that they were loved and it was their choice.
Yes, exactly.
And that's something
Children need choice. They need to develop as you know, choice-making exercise. They need to be free to do what they kind of. I found we follow them, whatever.
Right.
It's not that they follow us. Obviously,
Well, they have to.
They learn, but also we learn. So it's a mutual learning.
Well, through your lecturing and through all your activities, your sports activities, skiing and loving to play tennis, yes,
swimming. I was yesterday in the beach and jump over the waves.
You said you were with Mark Forti, right?
Yes, Mark. Good friend.
Mark, he's a good guy too. I'm going to have him on eventually.
Sure,
he's a good guy.
Ask him.
And you say you have your own events. What kind of events do you have?
Well, I do conferences, mostly academic projects. The latest one is revision of the United Nations Charter.
Right,
no less than that.
You say these are events, but you're putting this together?
Yeah, I put group together, scholars.
Okay,
and
so it's not for the public,
it's
general
workshop.
Public.
Well,
Okay.
it will go public. In September, we are producing the declaration, which will go to the United Nations General Assembly. So we are working on, well, we are not happy with the United Nations, with the wars, with the climate change and all of that. And we think there are fundamental deficiencies in the text of the United Nations Charter, the right of 5 powers to veto other resolutions and so on, the inequality between the members. So we are trying to revise the system, the global governance system, by introducing changes. Now even looking at article by article changes of the UN Charter. So I do academic projects like this.
Okay.
I publish my own stuff, you know, I write articles and books. I have over 20 books, by the way.
Is that right?
Yes.
Based upon what,
Go
politics?
to Amazon and see them. Yes,
Okay.
based on my previous project. So this
Which
is
are
the latest.
which based?
Oh, I had one called Implementation of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change.
Okay. So these are all
2018.
political.
The latest one is
writings?
called Reimagination of International Legal Order, published virtually 2 weeks ago by Routledge. I just had a book launch in Washington in the
Right.
Institute for Peace.
Right.
So I do book projects, which are edited books. It's not only mine. There are
Right.
20 people writing chapters, and then I'm editing and publishing it. But I had also my own. And also I do conferences. I speak at many I just came back from Washington. I was in Madrid the week before that, going to London next in end of July. Yes, it's academic work. It's teaching during the semester here, but you have like 2 months in the summer, 2 months in the winter to travel and to meet colleagues, professors, attend conferences, speak, and to also do. I want to do more on on global governance, on climate change, those risks that faces the humanity faces, and how
What about
to
sustainability?
improve the system. Yeah, we are worried that the institutions do not match the challenges we have. And
With
one of them is-
sustainability, you mean?
Yes, sustainability,
right.
climate change, the
Right.
way of the ecological disasters, environmental degradation.
So what you try to do is basically give them a way where they can still feel like they're achieving goals without destroying our environments.
Exactly. Sustainability. You put it correctly. So
That's
how
interesting.
our
So
grandchildren
you
not
put these
to
intellects
suffer.
together, you
Yes.
put these scholars together, and you guys just kind of brainstorm?
Brainstorm, but also each of them, and me including, write a text which goes into a book. So basically what we call book project is exactly somebody need to lead and to conceptualize and to give the tasks
Right.
of the chapters, the titles.
Right.
And then people write their text, they send to me, I revise them, edit them, and they go to publish it.
So when you say edit them, and I'm just curious, so let's say if I was one of the scholars,
Yes.
and you edited mine, do I get to see it before you put it in?
Of course.
So I have to approve what you've edited?
Of course, yes.
And I can say, no, I want you to leave.
Well, my edits
that
are
in.
mostly to make it kind of
Cohesive.
consistent with
Got you. Oh,
cohesive
you wanna-
with
oh,
the
you wanna
rest.
be-
So
you wanna
I'm
make-
not changing anybody's
You want it to
mind, yes.
flow.
I want to say, look, can I suggest, and he or she decide whether to accept my suggestion.
I hear.
I'm not changing anything. It's their mind. They have to speak. That's a good way of putting it. Exactly. So these are it's not really events. It's workshops, conferences. I fundraise. I have my project with several foundations. So yes, and the next one is the revision of the UN Charter, which will go public in September. And then, thinking of another book maybe next year. I was also privileged to work in India. I worked for the Jindal Global University.
Didn't you say you were on television there?
Yes, several times.
Several
with the
times,
DD
yes.
News. Yes, we do a lot.
No, we's the royal
Because the academics,
Okay,
the colleagues,
academics,
the
okay.
professors
Right.
try to kind of change the mind of the policymakers. Not easy task, but
Right.
we are advocating for change and for exactly the leadership we are talking about, which we had 40 years ago and we don't see today.
Right, right. Before I end, before I end the podcast, there's a question I always like to ask. If you could go back in time and meet the younger Vas
Good
and
one.
give him advice, how old would he be and what advice would you give him?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a very, very excellent question. Advice to the younger need time.
And how old would he be?
To which of the Vasses?
And how many times can you go back?
Very good one. I need to think. I will write my next book about it. That's a great question. Okay, let me figure out something which I regretted. Okay. So probably, yes, usually when you ask people who are very aged already, at the age of 90, what do they regret? Usually they say, nobody say I regret doing less work,
Right.
writing less books. They will say more like I regret not having enough time for the children and grandchildren. So probably that could be one advice I would have given to when I was back, let's say, 30 or 35 or 40. I could have spent more time with my kids at those ages.
But could we, but really,
But
I'm sorry, I
how?
shouldn't interrupt
Again,
you.
I don't know how to do that, but I was ambitious. I was spending all my life in offices and, jobs. But yes, that's probably something I would have loved to do more. Let's put it this way.
That's beautiful.
Difficult to go back, but yes, that's how I will answer that.
That's beautiful. I want to thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
your
much,
time.
Juan. It was a
Thank you
pleasure
so much,
meeting you
Alex.
always. Enjoy.
I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all unknown, so continue to reach for the stars.
Because we are too blessed to be stressed.